My director denied my raise because I only clicked buttons. 3 days later, the system he built without me crashed. And suddenly my button clicking was the only thing that could keep the company alive. The meeting was on a Tuesday. I remember the smell of his office, that fake clean linen scent from a plug-in, trying to cover up the smell of stale coffee. His name was Mark. He was the kind of director who wore a $5,000 watch but always forgot his wallet at team lunches. He made over $130,000 a year plus bonuses. I was 25. I was his junior data tech and I made $41,000. Let's be clear about what $41,000 a year means in a high-cost city. It means my share of the rent for a moldy 700-square-foot apartment was $1,900 a month. It means my student loan payments were $450 a month. It means my diet was 80% pasta and beans. I was, according to my bank app, at risk of overdraft for the third time that month. I'd practiced my speech in the mirror for a week. I had a spreadsheet. A literal spreadsheet. I'm a data person. That's how I make my case. It wasn't vague. It was itemized. Item number 14, January 5th. Rerouted server load from Oregon data center during outage. Prevented estimated $200,000 sales loss. Time, 4 hours, unpaid. Item number 21, February 12th. Identified and patched SQL injection vulnerability in client portal. Prevented data breach. Time, 6 hours, unpaid. Item number 35. March 2nd. Rebuilt sales dashboard query. Cut load time from 90 seconds to 3. Mark presented this as his own. I had 47 items. Mark, I started. My hands were freezing so I clasped them in my lap. I've been here 2 years and I'd like to discuss my compensation. In the last 6 months alone, I've streamlined the ingest pipeline, which cut server costs by 12%. I also built. He held up a hand. And he smirked. That's the part that still gets me. The smirk. It wasn't unkind. It was amused. Like a parent watching a toddler try to use a big word. Ellie, he said, leaning back in his chair. It was a $1,200 Herman Miller. I knew because he'd expensed it. I'll be direct. The budget is tight. I understand, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But based on my performance, especially I nodded toward my spreadsheet which I'd printed. He didn't even look at it. Look, Ellie. He leaned forward, lacing his fingers. That big shiny watch right in my face. What you do, it's mechanical. It's not strategic. You just click the buttons. You're very good at clicking the buttons. But the real data work, the strategy, that's what earns the big salaries. You misunderstand your role. I just stared at him. Mechanical. All the nights I'd stayed up. All the weekends I'd spent rewriting his broken, strategic queries. All the times he'd forwarded me a frantic email from a VP with a vague "handle this." And I had. Let's revisit this in a year, he said, that smirk turning into a patronizing smile. When you've got a little more strategic initiative. Maybe you could take one of the online strategy courses the company offers? I think HR has a portal for that. I stood up. My printed spreadsheet was still on his desk. I left it there. A silent, useless testament. I walked out of his office. I didn't cry. I was too cold. But I wasn't done. I had my data. I went straight to HR. I sat down in front of Brenda, the HR director. She looked bored before I even opened my mouth. She was typing an email as I walked in. Just a sec, she mumbled, not looking up. I waited. The silence stretched. She finally hit send, with a flourish, and swiveled in her chair. So, Ellie, she said. What's the fire? Hi, Brenda. I started, trying to sound professional, not like the 25-year-old on the verge of tears I was. I've just come from a meeting with Mark, and I'd like to file a formal complaint about my compensation review. Brenda sighed. A long put-upon sigh. She clicked something on her mouse, pulling up what I assumed was my file. Ellie. Is it Ellie or Ellen? Right, Ellie. She looked at her screen. Well, Ellie, your last review was good, but Mark's concerns are about the day-to-day. I blinked. Mark's concerns? What concerns? He says you're not always a team player. That you can be resistant to feedback. That's a serious flag, Ellie. I don't understand. I just showed him a spreadsheet of my work. I'm just asking to be paid for the work I'm doing. Yes. Brenda gave me a tight plastic smile. But Mark already gave us a heads up you might be confused about your role. My stomach dropped. The blood drained from my face. Confused. His words, she said, tapping her pen. He said you were inflating your contributions, that you've been struggling with the team dynamic and frankly being a bit immature about your place on the team. I couldn't speak. He hadn't just said no to my face. He'd gone behind my back. Before my meeting. He'd preemptively discredited me. He'd framed me as a delusional, ungrateful kid before I even had a chance to open my spreadsheet. My complaint didn't just fail. It wasn't just denied. It backfired. Spectacularly. Brenda gave me that tight smile again. My advice. Go back to your desk, focus on the work Mark gives you and try to show a little more maturity. We'll forget this little chat ever happened. She was treating me like the problem. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have possibly known, was that Brenda picked up her phone and called Mark the second I left her office. She'd given him a confidential heads up that I was trying to stir things. The shift was immediate. That same afternoon, I went to the kitchen to get lunch. The two senior analysts, Tom and Sarah, were already there. I'd eaten lunch with them almost every day for 2 years. I smiled. Hey guys. Tom saw me, looked at Sarah, and then, it was awful. Sarah suddenly looked at her phone. Oh wow, look at the time. We've got that meeting with Mark. Right now. Right, Tom said, not looking at me. They both grabbed their salads and practically ran out of the kitchen. I stood there holding my sad little Tupperware of pasta and beans. I sat down at the empty table. I felt like I was in high school. Later that day it got worse. Tom, the senior analyst, walked by my desk. He wasn't going anywhere. He just stopped. Hey intern, he said. It wasn't a joke. His voice was mean. I'm not an intern, Tom, I said, my voice quiet. I've been here 2 years. Right. 2 years. He pointed at the big industrial copier by the wall. Since you're so good at clicking buttons, the copier on 4 is jammed. Handle it. He didn't wait for an answer. He just smirked and walked off. I sat there, my face burning. Everyone in my row had heard. No one said a word. No one even looked at me. It was like I had become invisible. Or worse, visible in a new, pathetic way. I didn't get the coffee. I didn't fix the copier. Mark walked by my desk an hour later. He didn't even look at me. He just dropped a file on my keyboard. The thud made me jump. Handle this, he said, and kept walking. It was a stack of raw error logs. A child's scribble of work. That was just the beginning. Here's where it gets messy. You need to understand what handle this really meant. Mark's spotless reputation, the one for flawless execution and strategic vision, was me. I was the one who built it. For $41,000 a year. Started my first month. I was 23, terrified and just happy to have a job that paid. Well, a job that paid. System crashed. A big one. The main sales dashboard. It was 8 p.m. on a Friday. Mark forwarded me the error email. It had 47 attachments and a header that was just. He sent it at 8 p.m. His only addition, thoughts. I stayed up until 3 a.m. I was staring at 10,000 lines of Mark's own strategic code, and it was a mess. Variables named data 1, data 2, temp undercivics final. It wasn't just broken, it was lazy. It was a house of cards and someone had sneezed. I didn't just fix it. I had to rebuild the entire query structure from scratch just to be able to trace the error. I found it. A Cartesian join error that was trying to multiply a 10,000 row table by itself. It was a rookie mistake. A mistake that was trying to create 100 million records out of thin air, which is why the server had just laid down and died. I rebuilt the cache. I rewrote the query. I fixed it. Then I wrote a simple 3-step email explaining what I'd done and how to prevent it from happening again. I sent it to Mark. At 9 a.m. the next morning in the big Monday all-hands meeting, I heard him. And as I realized over the weekend, Mark said, his voice booming, the real bottleneck was in the cache. So I personally rebuilt it. Here's the 3-step process I implemented to fix it. He read my email. Verbatim. He got a round of applause. He even looked over at me sitting in the back and joked. And thanks to Ellie for taking such great notes. The whole room chuckled. I felt my face burn. I was the kid who takes notes. I should have quit. I should have screamed. I was 23. I froze. I had student loans. I had rent. So I just sat there. But I did do one thing. After that meeting, I went back to my desk. I opened a new document on my personal hard drive. Not the shared drive. I titled it Log. My first entry, January 10th. 8:01 p.m. Mark assigned sales dashboard crash. 3:15 a.m. Sent solution to Mark. 9:05 a.m. Mark presented solution in all hands meeting. Claimed as his own. I told myself it was for my portfolio. To prove my skills for the next job. But that was a lie. I knew even then I was building an arsenal. I didn't know why. I just knew I had to. Felt like the only power I had. That log became my Bible. My dark, bitter, secret little ritual. Every time Mark forwarded me a handle this email, I logged it. Every time I sent him a fix, I logged it. With a timestamp. Every time I heard him in a meeting presenting my fix as his strategy, I logged it. It wasn't just internal stuff. Like the time our biggest client's custom report broke. The $5 million a year client. Mark told them, my team is on it. He forwarded me the email at 11 p.m. on a Friday. Handle this. ASAP. I handled it. I was supposed to be at my friend's birthday party. Instead, I was in my moldy apartment, elbow deep in legacy code, drinking lukewarm tap water. I fixed it by 2 a.m. The client sent a glowing email to Mark at 8 a.m. Mark, you're a lifesaver. Please thank your team. Mark replied. He CC'd me this time. Happy to help. Glad we could get it sorted. LEC? Teamwork. He'd made me complicit in his own lie. I logged it. I attached the emails. This is important. Because the isolation got worse. A week after my failed raise request, Mark announced a new project. An automated error report. I felt a jolt. I'd already built one. On my own time. On my weekends. I taught myself a Python script from YouTube tutorials at 2 a.m. I had shown it to him in our last one-on-one before I'd asked for the raise. That's great, Ellie, he'd said, not really looking. Really shows initiative. Now in the team meeting he smiled. Sarah has a fantastic idea for a new automated error report. Sarah, his favorite, the one who'd left me in the kitchen, blushed. My mouth went dry. I'd spent 3 months on that project. Ellie, Mark said, turning to me. The whole room was watching. Since you've got some experience with the error files, can you please forward all your notes to Sarah to help her get started? He wasn't just stealing my project. He was making me the intern who had to hand over her homework to the real analyst. My hands were shaking. Of course, Mark. I went back to my desk. I zipped the file. My entire project. My code. My documentation. I emailed her the .zip file. She emailed back one word. Teeks. Not even thanks. TX. I logged it. March 15th. 11:03 a.m. Mark reassigned my automated error report project to Sarah. Instructed me to forward all work. I attached a screenshot of my original file with the created on date from 3 months prior. 2 weeks later, Sarah presented it in the all-hands meeting. My code. My work. She got a Rising Star Award in the company newsletter. My name wasn't mentioned. Then came my annual review. The draft, which he'd written before our fight, I had seen it in my file. Exceeds expectations. The final version, the one that went into my file after my chat with HR? He'd rewritten it. I stared at the words. Ellie struggles with initiative. My blood felt like static. She misunderstands her role and needs to focus on thinking more strategically. She has, at times, become a disruptive element to team cohesion. A disruptive element. This wasn't just a bad review. This was a lie. A permanent, fireable lie. This was how he'd get rid of me. He was building his case just like I was building mine. His was just official. I took a screenshot of the original draft. I saved it next to the final version. I logged it. I just kept my head down. I kept clicking the buttons. And I kept logging. I know what you're thinking. Why did I stay? I'm stubborn. And I'm poor. I couldn't afford to quit without a new job. And who would hire me with a review like that? But mostly, I just don't like to lose. I tried to go to Mark's boss, the VP David, once. His admin Cynthia looked at me over her glasses. She was one of those people who'd been with the company 20 years and acted as a gatekeeper for everything. Do you have a meeting, Ellie? No, I said. But it's an urgent platform concern. It's about a potential failure point. She gave me a thin smile. All platform concerns must be routed through your director, Mark. That's the strategic chain of command. She emphasized strategic. He was one of his too. I was locked out. So I just kept working. I kept clicking. And I waited. I didn't know what for. But I knew something would break. Mark's strategic code. It always broke. 2 weeks later. It happened. Mark calls a high-priority all-hands meeting. Big news, team, he says. He's practically vibrating with excitement. He's wearing his special tie, the one with little dollar signs on it. I'm not kidding. We're finally greenlit to migrate to the new Orion platform. This is going to revolutionize our workflow. I've been pushing for this for months. I knew about Orion. It was a buggy, overpriced piece of software the company had been strong-armed into buying because the CEO was golf buddies with the Orion CEO. It was also, as I knew from reading the tech blogs, a complete dumpster fire. This is a high-risk, high-reward project, Mark said. So I'm handling the strategy. Ellie, he said, turning to me, you'll handle the data integrity checks. My stomach turned. Handling integrity checks meant that when it all went wrong, I'd be the one who'd checked it. It was the perfect way to make me the scapegoat. Got it, Mark, I said. I spent the next week doing my job. The mechanical part. I ran a test migration. A small file. Just 100 records. It failed. Not just failed. It corrupted 70% of the data. Just gone. The customer names were in the zip code column. The price column was just a string of question marks. I ran it again. It failed worse. The Orion platform wasn't just buggy. It was a black hole. It wasn't talking to our 20-year-old legacy inventory system. At all. I didn't feel it was wrong. I proved it. I wrote a detailed email. Not, I think this is bad. I wrote, Mark. Test 1, failed. Error code 404. See attached log. Test 2, failed. Data mismatch in column, skew. See attached screenshot. We are seeing a 70 to 80% data corruption rate. I finished the email with one clear sentence. I strongly recommend we delay the migration by at least 2 weeks to address these critical failures. If we proceed on Friday, we risk 100% data corruption and a full system halt. I hit send. He replied. 5 minutes later. To the whole team. Thanks, Ellie. His email read. We'll take your concerns under advisement. But the strategic timeline is set. We're moving forward. My blood ran cold. He was building his paper trail. He was making me the nervous little tech who cried wolf. So when it all went wrong, he could say, Ellie was in charge of integrity, but I had to make the tough call. She just didn't see the big picture. Then came the meeting. The big one. The whole department. Mark is at the front of the room, clicking through his PowerPoint. It's all stock photos of rockets and people in suits shaking hands. And so, he says, beaming, we are greenlit for the migration. Friday at 5 p.m. This is a huge win, team. I raised my hand. I had to. I couldn't not. The room went quiet. I never spoke in these meetings. Mark, I said. My voice was small, but it was clear. The test environment is still showing a 70% failure rate. The inventory system will fail. It cannot communicate with the Orion API. You could have heard a pin drop. Mark's smile froze. He turned to me. Then he turned to the room. And he laughed. Well, team, he said, that awful condescending smirk back on his face. If our junior tech, he pointed right at me, thinks she's outsmarted the entire engineering department of Orion, then the rest of us must be in big trouble. The room laughed. It wasn't a small chuckle. It was a full, dismissive, look at the intern laugh. Tom literally snorted. Outsmarted Orion, he muttered to Sarah, loud enough for me to hear. She can't even unjam the copier. I felt hot. Just hot. All over. I looked down at my notepad. My pen was shaking, but I wrote. March 22nd. 3:15 p.m. Public meeting. Mark dismissed final warning. Proceeding with migration. Mark turned back to me. Ellie, you just focus on, clicking the buttons. We'll handle the strategy. The rest of the week was hell. People avoided my gaze. They whispered when I walked by. I was the crazy girl who'd tried to embarrass the boss. I worked. Friday, 4 p.m. 1 hour before the migration. I ran a full, complete backup of the old system. The one that worked. The one that was currently running our entire $2.7 million a day operation. And I saved it. Not to the shared drive. I saved it to a local external SSD. A little gray Samsung drive. The one I'd bought with my own money for $89.99 at Best Buy. I put it in my bag. And I waited. Friday, 5 p.m. Mark is standing at the front of the room like a general. He's invited the whole team to watch history being made. He even ordered pizza. Stale cold pizza. All right, people, he says. He clicks his mouse. History. I'm watching my monitor. 5:01 p.m. The inventory dashboard freezes. 5:02 p.m. It doesn't just freeze. It goes blank. A white screen. 5:03 p.m. My phone buzzes. An automated alert from the old system. A script I wrote. Fatal underscore. Cannot connect to database. 5:04 p.m. The 5 p.m. server hum. It just stopped. The entire floor went quiet. You could suddenly hear the air conditioning, the traffic outside. It was the sound of nothing. The sound of $2.7 million an hour evaporating. Mark's phone rings. The big, obnoxious Star Wars theme he uses. He picks it up, all smiles. David. Sir. It's done. A flawless. His smile just vanished. What do you mean halted? He's listening. His face is getting pale. No, that's impossible. I'm looking at it right now. It's just loading. He's clicking his mouse. Frantically. Click, 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 click. Uselessly. It's just a lag, he said to no one. The system it's caching. He looks at his screen. It's white. He looks at my screen. It's white. He looks at me. His eyes are wide. Panicked. Ellie. Check it. What did you do? I just look at him. It's gone, Mark. What do you mean gone? The database. It's empty. The migration query didn't just copy. It moved. And it moved it into nothing. The Orion platform has 0 bytes of data. And the legacy database is also empty. The company's entire inventory workflow was dark. All 50 warehouses nationwide. No one could ship. No one could receive. No one could even see what we had. This wasn't a bug. This was an extinction-level event. By 7 p.m. the VP David was in the office. He wasn't running. He was walking. Very, very fast. And his face was white. The whole team was there. Sitting at their desks. The room was dead silent except for the sound of Mark sweating. I could literally hear him. His shirt was soaked through. Mark, David said. His voice was dangerously quiet. What the hell happened? Mark, his hands shaking, looked around. He was a cornered animal. He was looking for a lifeline. And I was it. He pointed at me. It's her. It's Ellie. She must have done something. She pushed for changes that weren't tested. She was in the integrity files. She's been negative about this project from the start. She's a saboteur. Every head in the room turned to me. The intern. The button clicker. The immature one. My heart was pounding. I thought it was going to come out of my chest. But my hands were perfectly steady. David looked at me. Ellie, is that true? I took a breath. No. That was all I said. She's lying. Mark was shouting now. She's been trying to stir things up, Brenda in HR told me. Shut up, Mark. David roared. The entire floor went silent. David turned back to me. His face was grim. Ellie, what happened? I looked at Mark. I looked at Tom and Sarah, who looked like they were about to be sick. Then I looked at David. I can't tell you what he did, I said. But I can fix it. David's eyes narrowed. How? I reached into my bag. I pulled out the $89.99 Samsung SSD. I placed it on the desk. Made a small click. I have a full clean backup of the entire legacy system. Timestamped 4 p.m. today. Before I looked at Mark. Migrated. Mark's face. I will never forget that look. It wasn't anger. It was evaporation. He just caved in. He knew. I turned back to David. It will take me about 6 hours to rebuild the connections, purge his corrupted files and restore the data. If everyone leaves me alone. David just stared at the hard drive. Then at me. Do it. For the next 6 hours I worked. The office was a morgue. David sat in a chair in the corner just watching. Mark was asked to wait in his office. Tom and Sarah just sat at their desks, staring at their blank screens. I just worked. I did the thing I was good at. The mechanical work. I wasn't being strategic. I was just, clicking buttons. I was rebuilding a multi-million-dollar company from a hard drive in my backpack. At 1:04 a.m. I typed the last command. I hit enter. I watched my screen. The dashboard flickered. And then, it populated. Data. Orders. Fees. Warehouse locations. It was all there. At 1:05 a.m., David's phone buzzed. It was an alert from the warehouse manager in Ohio. David read it out loud. We're back online. What happened? David stood up. He walked over to my desk. He looked exhausted. Ellie. Thank you. He looked at me. He really looked at me. For the first time. Now, he said, and his voice was cold. Tell me what really happened. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't gloat. I just swiveled my chair. I opened my laptop. I can show you. I opened the file. The log. Here, I said, my voice flat, is the email from March 1st. The one where I warned him the test environment was failing. Here is the log of the 70% failure rate. I clicked. Here is the meeting invite from March 22nd. And here, I pointed to my notepad on the desk, is my note from that meeting. Mark dismissed final warning. Proceeding with migration. I clicked again. Here is the email Mark sent to the entire team at 3:30 p.m. after that meeting. The one where he took my concerns under advisement. David was reading. His face was getting darker and darker. Here, I said, is the project file for the automated error report. Created on January 18th. And here is the email from Mark, dated March 15th, reassigning it to Sarah. David's knuckles went white. And here, I said, this was the one. Here is the screenshot of my draft review. Exceeds expectations. And here is the final review he submitted. Struggles with initiative. And here, I clicked one last time, is the email Mark sent to Brenda in HR. In February. A full week before I even asked for my raise. The one where he said I was unreliable, immature, and inflated my contributions. David stopped reading. He just stood there. He wasn't just looking at incompetence. He was looking at malicious, documented fraud. The silence in the room was. It wasn't fear. It wasn't dismissal. It was respect. Genuine, stunned respect. I looked up at David. He said I just click buttons. He was right. I click save. I click timestamp. And I click backup. David just nodded. Once. A slow, terrible nod. He didn't say a word to me. He just walked over to Mark's office. I couldn't hear what he said. I don't want to know. But I saw it. At 1:30 in the morning, Mark walked out. He was carrying a cardboard box. His $5,000 watch was hidden by his jacket cuff. He didn't look at anyone. He just walked to the elevator. And he was gone. He wasn't removed from projects. He was gone. David came back out. Ellie. Go home, he said. His voice was soft now. Get some sleep. Don't come in on Monday until noon. And, we'll be having a talk. I just nodded. I packed my bag. I put my $89.99 hard drive back in its little pouch. And I went home. I slept for 14 hours. I walked in on Monday at 12 p.m. The office was weird, quiet. I walked past the rows of desks. People weren't just not whispering. They were haughty. With this new weird scared respect. I was the one who had been in the room. I was the one who'd stayed. I was the one who'd pulled the plug on Mark. Sarah, the one who'd had the great idea, came up to my desk. She wouldn't look me in the eye. Ellie, she mumbled. She was twisting her hands. I'm sorry. That project. The error report. Was yours. I told David. I told him it was all yours. Hey, I said. Then Tom, the intern guy, walked by. He didn't say anything. He just put a coffee on my desk. The good kind. From the expensive place downstairs. He mumbled, thanks. And walked away. At 12:01, David's admin, Cynthia, called me. David and Brenda are ready for you. So Brenda was here. I walked in. David was at the head of the table. Brenda was there. She looked terrified. She wasn't smiling. Ellie, sit down, David said. Brenda, he said, not looking at her. The file. Brenda was typing fast. It's gone, she said, not looking at me. The review. The informal notes. Your file is expunged. As if it never happened. Good, David said. Now get out. Brenda just stood up and left the room. David turned to me. First, he said. An apology. Not corporate jargon. A real one. We failed you. I listened to the wrong person, and I almost let him burn this company to the ground. He slid a piece of paper across the table. This, he said, is a one-time bonus for exceptional performance under pressure. It's $20,000. I just looked at it. It was half my yearly salary. On one check. And this, he said, sliding a second piece of paper over, is your new offer letter. Your new salary, effective immediately, is $95,000. I finally breathed. From $41,000 to $95,000. And, David said, Mark's position is obviously open. Director of Data Strategy. It's yours. If you want it. I looked at the title. No, I said. David looked shocked. I picked up a pen. I crossed out strategy. I wrote, integrity. I don't want his title, I said. His title is meaningless. It's just strategy. I want a new one. Director of Data Integrity. David looked at the word. Integrity. He let out a long breath. That's the first smart strategic thing I've heard in a year. Gut. Yes. Director of Data Integrity. He said it like he was tasting it. I like that. I like that a lot. He stood up. He held out his hand. Done, he said. Welcome to the team, Director. The next week was the big Monday meeting. The one Mark used to run. I walked in. I wasn't the kid who takes notes anymore. The room went quiet when I came in. The big conference table. It was always full. I'd always had to sit in the back row in the plastic chairs against the wall. This time, Tom and Sarah. They were at the table. They saw me. And they both stood up. They pulled their chairs back. They made space. I walked over. I sat down. At the table. I looked around. Everyone was watching me. Waiting for me to speak. It was hard. What I went through, it was the worst, most isolating 2 months of my life. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But was it worth it? I opened my new laptop. The one they'd had waiting for me. I projected my screen. The first slide wasn't rockets. It wasn't people shaking hands. It was my automated error report. The real one. All right, I said, and my voice didn't shake. Fist filled the space. Let's talk about real strategy. Here's what we're doing first. I keep thinking about that $89.99 hard drive. The mechanical button I'd clicked to back everything up. I still have my log. I looked at it that morning. All the pain, all the slights, all the handle this emails. I added one last entry. April 5th, 9:01 a.m. Took my seat. Then I highlighted the entire document. Every entry. Every timestamp. Every bit of proof. And I pressed delete. I didn't need it anymore. Victory isn't always loud. Sometimes it's not about shouting, it's about outlasting. It's about being prepared. It's about knowing your worth even when the person who signs your paycheck tells you that you have none. Victory isn't just sweet. It's public. It's undeniable. And this time, it was entirely mine.